Are you a bootstrapper who's never considered raising investment money? Or maybe you're a diehard VC funded growth hacker who can't imagine running a business without that extra cash infusion? Well, either way, Jason Cohen's journey from bootstrapping to raising millions will give you a fresh perspective on the funding debate. Jason discusses his personal discovery of wanting a different journey with WP Engine, which led to raising money after 2 years of bootstrapping. And now it's a unicorn. Well, there you go. We also uncovered the importance of understanding your competitors instead of just demonizing them in order to develop a unique strategy for your own business. Jason has seen and done a lot as a founder, and no matter what stage of this journey you're on right now, you will learn something from our conversation today. Let me quickly thank the sponsor of this episode, acquire.com here. More about that later. And now here's Jason Cohen. Thank you so much for being on the show, Jason. That's really nice of you to come. 2 exits and 2 unicorns. Those are quite some credentials that you have there. And one thing that I really, really love about your journey is that the businesses that you've been involved in started out bootstrapped and then later raised investment money. And I always wondered, following that journey, was that the plan from the start, or did it become a necessity at some point? How did you go from bootstrapping to raising money? Because those tend to be different things, right?
It was never the plan from the start with any of them. And so with Smart Bear, I never raised money. I sold it while it was still bootstrapped, and it was only the company I sold it to, which was Insight Venture Partners, a well-known VC out of New York. They put in more money and bought up a number of companies, which it now is still called Smart Bear, but it's a number of development tool companies centered around quality. And but I never raised money for it at all. Then with WP Engine was my fourth company, and bootstrapped again because all of them were. That's the deal. But about 2 years in, it became clear that the market was way bigger than I thought. It really was an opportunity size that you could raise money for, meaning like it was plausible. It made sense to. Not that you have to, but you could, and it would be logical given how big it could be. That became clear after 2 years. And then the other factor was, again, having done it many times and also now being a father at that time, I think a combination of that was like, maybe I want a different journey this time. And I don't mean a different journey as in, oh, I know how to make companies. This is easy. That is not true. There's a couple of things that are easier, like, oh, you know this about taxes, or you have this one framework about doing this one thing. Okay, a little bit. But largely everything's new. New customers, new market, new product. Even in a market you understand, 10 years later, it's still a different market. Still everything's different. And so you really have to have beginner's mind with each company. So not that I thought I knew all of that, but rather, am I optimizing for profit or growth? Is the constraint money or is the constraint people? How big of a strategy should we make or can we make? What kind of an impact can we make in the world? What kind of an organization we want to build? Those are the kinds of things where there can be very different paths. And since I had done one path and one set of constraints and goals, multiple times, again, I didn't go into it thinking I wanted something different. I thought I wanted the same, but then it turned out like, you know what, maybe. And so it was this just discovery, personal discovery, I guess, as well as being luckily in a market and with a product with such fit, because it was incredible product market fit, that was a viable option. Of course, now in retrospect, absolutely correct.
Right. Yeah, I think that paid out pretty well. Well, the thing that I wonder about, like, when I built my businesses in the past, I always considered myself identity-wise a bootstrapper. I thought that was part of me, right? And that always made even just the idea of raising money something like, no, that's what other people do, right? It's kind of the inversion of what Seth Godin is talking about, with people like us do things like that. People like us don't do things like that. They don't raise. So did you struggle with that at all, with this kind of identity thing as a bootstrapper in that moment?
I did not, because of a couple of things. One is I do identify with the companies I have or the ideas that I have, the blog that I've written for over 16 years. Those kinds of things, of course, are part of my identity, and I do feel that way about. I don't feel that way about processes. I don't feel that way about sort of some of these more objective decisions. Should you raise money or not? What kind of culture should you have? is design important or less important? There's which markets and what kinds of things are good, other than some very broad things like making the world net better instead of net worse that I think some companies do, or unethical things. Other than some like very big boundaries like that, I don't have a personal thing. So like I don't have an axe to grind with investors versus not. Having done both, it's like, yeah, they both have upsides, downsides. There's bad actors in both places, and I don't know, like I see all of the above. So I don't know that one's evil and one's not evil. I've had experiences with investors where they have been, without them, there's no way the company would be as good as it is, including things like culture and people, not just financially. And also things where the internal desires of the investors mean that the pressures on the company are wrong. And I don't mean at WP Engine necessarily. I've invested in dozens of companies, so I've seen other investors act. But like as an investor myself, I've been with companies where it was very clear that the founder would be better off if they sold it. They wanted to sell it. And I saw some investors trying to get them not to, because I guess that investor wants to, whatever. But I saw others, including myself, saying like, good for you. Let's help you do that. That's what you want to do. Let us help you do that, which we did. So maybe that was was that less overall return for investors? I don't know. It was a return and the founders burned out. So that actually sounds good for everybody. So I've seen people be extremely helpful in that role. And I've seen people be, hurtful is maybe the wrong thing, but like not taking the company into consideration, being very selfish and so forth. I've seen both. So to just paint a broad brush and just say it's bad, I get it. I understand that mentality. It's something to do. It's a thing to rail against. And that makes sense to me. But to me, I care about the actual behaviors going on rather than the concept of like fundraising being something that it is or isn't me.
Yeah. It feels to me that it's kind of not taking investment to many people is a shortcut to not having alignment problems with investors. Because if there's no investors, kind of an alignment problem, because you're not going to have any alignment. But obviously there are great investors that will align magically or at least intentionally with your business. So yeah, that's kind of what I've come to understand as well. And it's funny that you say that you're saying that you are invested in other companies. I think I found on your website that you are or were invested in SureSwift Capital. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you aware that the SureSwift Capital was the acquirer of my SaaS business a couple of years ago?
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess I have you to thank on some level for being acquired as well. So there you go.
No, but there's a great example of what I think of okay, as an investor, well, it is, as an LP in that, they are an investor. Of course, they buy out the company completely and run it and so forth, but they are an investor in the same way that a private equity is. They're really a private equity for small companies. So aren't they great? I mean, I watched your interview with Kevin and like, aren't they making the world a better place? Aren't they making it not only the world better for founders who get to get out of the company, whether that's for liquidity or burnout or both? I would guess a lot of the time. Isn't that better? And it elevates people who are at the company and they get a chance to shine and have some leadership positions that maybe there wasn't room for before because it was a small company. Yeah. So isn't that better for them? And it's better for the customers, of course, if the company has continuity and doesn't just burn out because the founder burned out, so isn't that making the world way better? And that's an investor. So again, like I care about, I do think there's a lot of bad behavior investors, and I love it when that's called out because it's very bad. Cory Doctorow, for example, fantastic at calling out bad behavior in industries, companies, et cetera. So hell yes. I'm ready to rail against those behaviors, right? But to just say like investors are bad, it's like SureSwift is bad? Really? You really want to say that because you're just so bootstrapped? Like some people do say that, and I just don't agree with that.
Yeah, don't agree with that either. It's funny because I learned of SureSwift through Moritz Dausinger, who I had on my show just a couple of weeks ago, and he was just a SaaS entrepreneur who sold his businesses there as well, and that gave him the opportunity to build better and even bigger businesses. They literally made the dream that he had possible by being there and being willing to acquire the thing that he was ready to sell. That's also a thing, like what Kevin was saying, like most people sell for a reason and money is not always that reason. Burnout is different. Diversification, that is a big big thing too, right? Like taking some money off the table, getting a half exit or full exit or whatever.
Yep.
People have their reasons, and it's nice that there is something in there for everyone. And even there are funds like the Calm Company Fund or Tiny Seed where there's some money for bootstrappers that is not bound to the VC growth expectations as well. I like that there's a continuum. That's what I really enjoy. And I think at some point in my life, I was very much on one side of it, just like, a radical bootstrapper, which is funny because I used to work for a Silicon Valley, like Series A raised SaaS business in the past. And I thought, oh, VC is where it's all at. So I had this overreaction.
That's false too, right? Like,
both are super limiting in a way.
Yeah, it's silly. I think when is it bad? When is it good? Very interesting questions. But just to say selling your business is bad or fundraising is bad, it's like, oh my gosh, that's just it's reductive and silly.
Right.
And then especially if you're really mad about it, it's like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, there's a pretty weird stance taking in our community. I think that the polarization, I think it might be a social media problem, that things are so polarized that you have to take a stance, because if you don't, then nobody cares. So you do, because it kind of in anticipation of getting some support, you take a more radical stance, and then you kind of drift apart. I mean, do we have this in the political systems of the world? Maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like that seems to be
one nice thing about being extreme is it's very easy to think about stuff, because it's just like, this is bad, this is good, and so that's that. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. It's sort of like, what's the diet that works? Well, really, like, as long as you're not eating too much and too much bad stuff, that's probably about right, unless you have like a very special problem. So how come there's so many diets? Well, these diets are like super extreme in this, or never eat that. Probably it's just a simple rule. And the fact that it's a simple rule means it's easier for you to follow it. And a more complex, subtle rule is just harder. And so the cognitive load going down, it just like makes it easy to go to the restaurant and just do this and tell them no that, and it's just better. And so it's not really about that there's no carbs or there's no this or that. It's really just that it's a simple rule to get to what you want. So similarly, it's fine just to say like VC bad or fundraising bad, bootstrapping good. That's what I'm going to do. There's nothing wrong with that really, because okay, then you're only going to read these kind of blogs. You're only going to follow this kind of stuff. Yeah. And good, because that means you'll go deeper in one area. That's good. Now, I could say you're not as well-rounded. You may be missing out on ideas. You certainly have a skewed version of what the world's like, but it's actually kind of useful. So I don't know, like it's a good way to focus your time. So I think if you're getting upset about it, then maybe it's like, hey, look, that's crazy to be upset. Yeah. But if you're like, no, I'm just focused, I think that's probably wise, actually.
I think that there's a difference between being interested in something and being prescriptive about that, right? You can be super interested and go super deep. I mean, that's kind of the T-shaped employee thing that I'm always thinking about, right? You have a broad view of everything, but you choose one. Yeah. But the moment you become an I-shaped employee, you have a problem, right? You don't want to be the just going deep on one and ignoring everything else.
Well, another thing too is your competitors may have raised money. In fact, if you're in any kind of a market that's not trivial, there are other competitors that are maybe large, maybe raise money, or maybe they're simply large so they have money themselves. Like, it doesn't really matter whether they raise it or not. And so if you know nothing about that and what their incentives are, what their culture might be like, what they might be trying to do, what their goals are, how is it that you're going to develop a strategy of your own where you win in your own way, knowing how they might react or may think about different things? You may know, since they need to do growth over everything else, if I go really strong in let's say customer relationships, and I spend all this extra time talking to people, making relationship, reaching out as soon as they sign up, I can do that because I'm not at scale, and because I could be more profitable. Or even just happier, have a happier customer base, more delighted customer base, rather than how fast can I grow a certain number. But they do, because I know that they raised from wherever place, and that's how they run their companies. So if I have a strategy that does X and Y, they will not follow me. Like, even if they could copy me, like in quotes with, monetarily, they won't, because that's not their culture, that's not their goals. So I will definitely have a unique strategy if I do that. See, that's part of what makes strategy good, is when you can say that. So if you know nothing about the other side because you can't be bothered and you think it's quote unquote stupid, even though they're 100 times bigger than you, so how could it be that stupid? Then you're probably just ignorant about your own strategy. So again, you don't have to like it, and but like, to just be ignorant of it or say that they're dumb when they're winning. It's like, I don't know, like that doesn't sound right. You want to build your own strategy where you win in your way, whatever that may be. And what that way will not be is you trying to outspend them on things, because that's what they've got, is that money. You need a different way. But similarly, they do need to, in a funny way, they almost need to spend money. It's not quite true that they need, but they kind of do. Like, you raise the money, the purpose is to spend it on something that de-risks the company or causes growth, something like that. So they kind of do need to do that. Well, if you know that, what can you do differently? Okay, so it actually can be really enlightening, not because, again, they're dumb, but because they have a different set of things they're solving for, different set of constraints, different goals than you. That's the genesis of a good strategy.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. That self-imposed ignorance by picking a spot and never looking anywhere else, that is a self-limiting belief, right? That is something that limits you, not just in who you can talk to and who you can learn from, but also just understanding how other people work. Thanks for sharing this.
Yeah.
I think this is a pretty smart strategy. Just to be aware of other people's incentives tends to be good to know what your competitors want, so you can see if you could just do something else that they don't want and then live beside them, right?
That they won't react to, they won't follow, just because they don't even want to. It could be, another thing is if you, if your attitude is they're dumb, like they raise money so they're dumb or they're bad or they're evil, that's preventing you from a true analysis of what their strengths really are. Strengths that they have that you may or may not want to combat. You may want to go strength for strength. That's fine. But you may want to go in an area where they're weak or not looking. If your attitude is they're dumb or bad, then you are not thinking about where they're strong and good. And that's what you need to do, so that you're building a strategy with that in mind. So that it harms your ability to think objectively and rationally about it.
Assigning any kind of emotional quality to a business generally tends not to be a smart choice, right?
Yeah.
It's a very, very human thing. And businesses, as much as the legal code may disagree here, are not people, right? At least they don't think exactly like people. Yeah, I like that. And I think this kind of it's an ego thing to me in many places where founders are like this, or at least where they openly communicate about it. It often rings of, I know best. Because, and then comes the list of accolades and experiences that they think that gives them the right to feel superior to everybody else in their industry, right? It's protecting their ego to not look at other things that might clash with their reality.
It does, but like, I think that there's a healthy aspect to that. Like, why did you start a company? If you must think that you know better, like, otherwise, what are you doing? You must believe this is a better design. I have better ideas. I want to run an organization in a better way. In fact, I don't want to raise money because they're just going to pull me, as you say, in the wrong direction or have the wrong counter incentives or just whatever. And I don't want that, because it could be, I think I'm right, but it's even more, I think, just don't tell me what to do. I just need to do it my own way.
Yeah.
Some people need to do it their own way and think they're right. They're very confident. But I find that a whole lot of founders, me included, want to do it my own way, but I wouldn't say I know I'm right. I just need to do it my own way.
Yeah, that's how you learn, right?
Whether I'm right or not, I need to do it. Sorry, I just need to. And I don't need investors telling me what to do, and I certainly don't want employers telling me what to do. So I might not even have that confidence to say that I'm right, but I still need to do it my own way. So I think you do have to hold on to that, because that's the impetus, that's the motivation to do it in the first place. And so you need that. That's the thing that's giving you the energy to do it. So you do need to have that whether it's confidence or not, you need to keep that, because that's what's going on. But to your point, like, okay, so that can be very strong and give you energy, give you motivation, cause you to do all these things in the first place. Good, keep it. But then when it bleeds over into not just I need to do it my way, but and also everyone else is dumb or evil or like, well, wait a minute, like, you don't need to put that label on someone else in order to say everything you just said about yourself. That's not necessary to do that. And if you realize that, maybe it allows you to keep that attitude without having to be negative about something else.
Well, I don't think I've ever was trying to instill in others that they're doing it wrong, but I did suffer, I guess, in the end, a lot from thinking that only I knew how to do it right. And only I was the one that should have done the thing that I did. You had a talk recently, I guess, 2018 at SaaStr, where you kind of go into the mental health things that founders go through, and where people who are at a stage where they're really not happy anymore with what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they say, well, I can't leave the company because if I do, everything implodes, right? That
Yeah,
the kind
yeah.
of self-aggrandizing perspective. But I really thought that it was, and let me just admit this here. I thought I cannot hire anybody they don't know, like they can't do the work as I did it, even though I was effectively building yet another CRUD app, right? I did it in Elixir, so it's a language that not too many people code in, but doesn't matter. There's still hundreds of thousands of these developers out there. I just thought, hey, there's not enough work for them because only I can do it quickly enough. There was so many self-delusional stuff in my life that I didn't hire. And not even just coders. We didn't hire anybody, which led me to a burnout state. And I fortunately had Kevin and Joseph there that were able to guide me through the acquisition and kind of allow me to leave the company and not have it implode on me. Actually derive the value that I so painfully built, including this, right? And not even understanding my own mental psychology around this topic. It was horrible. I didn't hire because I thought nobody could do my work, which is like, why do we do this? And I wonder, you certainly didn't do that. You did hire, and you grew a sizable company. You have your own building now. That's really cool. So did you ever struggle with this? Like, how did you talk to yourself about this to get other people to do the work that they're better at than you, maybe?
Well, I mean, I've worked with really good people, so I'm not under the illusion that there's not such a thing as good people. I think a couple of things to unpack there about that. So again, the founder does have a certain vision and energy that you can't hire for. So you're kind of right that you can't hire someone, quote unquote, to do your job for you if by your job you mean everything about being a founder. Right. Then that's true.
Yeah.
But what's not true is that you need to hire someone to replace all of you. Like that's not what's needed. As you said, like the job might be to hire a developer. That's not replacing all of you. And it's really quite silly to say out loud that no developers are as good as you at writing code. It's just not true.
Yeah.
It may be true that you don't know how to find them, that nobody wants to work for you. That might be true, but that sounds like a personal failing. Actually, a personal problem, not something that you should be proud about. Now maybe you can't afford it. That's a whole different story. But if you can, yeah. So the attitude that I give, and I think I might give it in that talk, I can't remember, is certainly as the CEO, let's say founder, what is your job in terms of creating the team? And the answer is not that you're hiring marketing person to do marketing and hiring engineering to do engineering. You're hiring people that specifically are better than you at that function so that function becomes better than it currently is. If you don't, then the company will never get better than you personally are at every function, which is a complete failure of leadership. You're telling me it's not a leader's job to make the whole organization better all the time? Really? That's not his job. That's not the job of every leader. So things getting better. Clearly part of the job. The organization's not getting better, smarter, more skilled, making better decisions. Then you're not doing good. Then you're failing. So that means you have to hire people that are better than you at everything. Again, there's some things like there's a certain relationship that you have with everyone as the founder, or a certain aura you have that you can't hire for. There's a few things like that, very few, but almost nothing is like that. And now the difficulty is how do you find someone who's better than you at something? If definitionally they know more, they have a higher skill set, they're more experienced. How is it that you would evaluate that? But again, if you use that as an excuse not to, then you failed as a leader, and that's on you. And so there are some answers to that. Like, and again, it's not easy, but like, who said it was easy? No one promised you it would be easy. So some things you can do, for example, is during the interview, you can ask them even questions that you have currently. How would you approach this? Like, they don't have all your details, so they can't give you. Well, maybe they can, but you could ask how would you approach this? How have you approached this in the past? So let's say it's marketing, and we've exhausted our one channel. Like, we get customers every month this channel, but we need to go to other channels. We're not sure even what to do. What do you do? So they're like, oh yeah, so like. You got to look at a lot of channels at once, and then test like this, and use budgets like that. Or maybe they say, people say that, but it's wrong. And here's why. And what you should do is just pick one or two adjacent ones, or you should first, I like to survey the customers and find out where they go. And it turns out they're only in like one or two other places. So you just go whole hog into those two places and you don't try everywhere, or whatever their idea is. I don't know. The point is, if they come back with all these thoughts, they've clearly thought of this before, they've done this before, it sounds rational to you. It sounds like someone where the things they're saying seem rational to you. So in other words, they're compatible with your way of thinking. That's important. And yet it feels like, oh, wow, that feels like several steps in the future. And yet compatible, that's starting to feel like someone in an interview who is better than you, but compatible. So you can think of that in terms of their thought process and skill set. You can, of course, think about it culturally, although it doesn't tell you. You can do reference checks on them. That can be hard, especially if they're working and not telling people that they're looking. Also, you want to, a lot of times in reference checks, people just say nice things. So you want to ask, to me, I ask things like, look, everyone thrives in certain environments and fails in certain environments. What kind of environment do you think this person thrives in? Like, what would be the attributes there? And where would they just fail? Again, not because they're bad, but just there'd be a super mismatch. So I ask questions like that so that the person doesn't feel like they're being negative about the person, but I don't tell them what my culture and expectations are, right? Because I want an honest approach. So that's an example of that. So things like reference checks with questions like that, these fit questions of thinking but ahead. Again, there's no magic formula, obviously. It's hard, but like these are among the things, obviously references from other people you trust. If you're hiring a marketer and you've never done that before, do you have anyone else that you know or it's in your network that you've worked with in the past who would be willing to help you interview that person, help you do that? You might even pay them a fee for that if it's a little bit more of a professional relationship, and that might be worth it. Obviously, recruiters can do it, but we all know like the best ones are really good, but a lot of them just shuffle resumes and charge you a lot. So it might even be better to give someone $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, and have them help you with the process. That might be actually better. So these are all possibilities to tackle this question of how do I hire someone who's better than me at the thing. But when you do that, I mean, obviously, it's almost definitionally you're creating a stronger, better company. And by the way, it's so much fun. Like, as a founder who thinks you know everything, how fun is it when other people have an idea and you're like, oh, okay, wait, that design is amazing. That feature was incredible. That insight is good. That marketing campaign is freaking badass. I would never have done that. How fun is that? Anyway, just fun, not to mention effective. Like,
Yeah.
that's the organization you should be trying to build, of course, so that's some ways to do it. But yeah, that should be the attitude. Now, of course, you may say, I never want to hire anyone ever. I want to be solo. That's totally fine. I'm not trying to put that down at all. But if you want to hire even one person ever, then this is the right attitude.
Man, I wish I would have met you 5 years ago because I could have really used this. Honestly, because what you just said, like the solopreneur thing, that was everything. And the only thing that I really knew is to do my own thing. I had worked in companies before, but I never had any management training or hiring training. I was just a software engineer, right? I was technical. I did the thing that people told me to, went to a couple meetings, nodded, and brought my ideas in and stuff. And that was really the life that I knew. So I had no idea what to look for. And even that I could do it. I think that was the big difference. I was not aware that I could just talk to people and then hire them. Like it was bizarre because solopreneurship is all about giving yourself permission for anything, but I was not internally giving myself permission to even think about hiring. That's kind of where I was. So what you thought or what you just said, and I thought this is a wonderful way of leveraging, I guess, social media, is to have a network of people that can help you with it.
That's one way. I mean, you don't have to have that, but it's an example of how a network can pay off in ways that you might not have originally thought. Again, there's many different ways. That's one way. I do think there is an attitude which I've had in the past as well, believe it or not, of like, well, I don't want employees. I want it to just be me. I don't want to deal with even one employee because I really want to control everything, and it's just more fun. And screw it. And the only meaning I want is in my own head. Now, again, I'm not putting that down. I'm just saying if you want a different path, then here's some attitudes to have, right? But let's say you want to be like, I'm the only one, but then you burned out. So here's what I would say about that. I say I burned out at SmartBear too. Like you're the only one who's ever burned out at a company. I think it's actually the most common case. That's my opinion. And I certainly have myself. So like, anyway, but what do you do about that? So there, again, I go back to a theme that's common for me recently, which is this idea of having a consistent strategy. So, okay, you don't want employees. It's just you. Obviously, you want to be profitable and probably sustainable. Maybe you want to sell it someday. I don't know. So, what other decisions do you need to make about the customers, the market, the product, tech support, marketing, sales? I know you don't have salespeople in that environment, but like there's a function of sales, or maybe there's not. Maybe it's a zero function. But like, what other decisions need to be made so that you don't burn out because if it's like it's only me, but I'm going to make these decisions that really need more people. Support is 24/7, but it's just me. Okay, well then you're going to burn out. When you get a certain number of customers, a certain amount of stuff, it's just going to consume you. So if it's going to be you forever, do not have 24/7 support. Now now anytime I say like it has to be like that, you can always think of, well, it could be because what if, and so there's always other solutions. So I don't mean to say it's so absolute, but let's just say by default, if it's going to be just you, then you don't want to be waking up in the middle of the night if servers go down. So you need to pick a product which the customer is not depending on 24/7. So if you have 4 hours of downtime, they're not going to be happy, but they'll live. That works if you're solo. Having to always be the only one with a pager always forever burns you out, especially once you get more and more. And so that stuff happens more and more, and then you're dead.
Yep.
Support can be similar. So it's like, okay, no problem. You want to pick that? No problem. But then you need to make other decisions that are consistent with that choice so that overall you're building a manageable thing. And I think when that's so, I don't, any decision you make is, to me, is like, that's fine. But inconsistent decisions, they're not fine. You need to pick,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I ever made that choice. Like again, I don't think I ever thought that I had to make that choice when I started. Because it's just, I'm going to build a software business because that's what I know. That's what I've done for 10 years. I'm going to do one by myself.
Yeah.
And I must have completely missed that I did all the other ones in teams of like 4 or 5 people with people on call and stuff, right? This must have slipped my mind that there was support to be done in the software business. It's bizarre, but you are in a way as a founder, this is the kind of reality distortion field that you also talked about earlier that gives you this optimism and that like striving for making something new where other alternatives already exist. That sometimes blinds you to the reality of the business, for which you may or may not have the capacity. What you just said with the pager at 3 a.m, that is where my anxiety levels came from.
Yeah, right.
When I sold
don't do that.
don't do that.
Or you could have another choice, and you could say, I can contract with people for that. You can do that for support, and you can do that for the pager.
Yeah.
Now there's downsides to that besides cost. Like, will they do a good job, especially in support? That's really dangerous because they're talking right to your customer, so that becomes part of your brand and part of your product. Is that okay? It might be, it might not be. Depends on your business and your attitude. With the technical pager, at least the customers aren't seeing it. So if they can kind of shield you from some of that, then that might be all right. So again, like you can be creative in saying no, I am going to make a 24/7 product, but I'm also going to design my product in such a way that I can then, when I'm at scale, not right away, when I get bigger, I can contract with a company because my product's going to be built such that there's run books that just always allow you to roll back or redo the, I don't know, whatever. I'm going to be able to do that, and I will build a product so that that's the case. So I'll be able to offload that. Now we've solved it again. Yay! So, but what you can't do is ignore it completely. Like, so either make the problem go away by not having that requirement, or there's another solution. So, not just having effectively inconsistent choices, but probably not choices you made on purpose, but choices that happened anyways by your behavior that are inconsistent. That will kill you. So another thing when you start doing that and saying like, "Oh, wait, this is conflicting with that," is you start having to decide, well, what do I really want? Do you really want to be a solopreneur, or do you really want to have a bigger company that takes more people to be bigger? You have to really decide. Again, there's no right answer. It's only right for you or wrong for you. And at this point in your life, like I started WP Engine wanting to bootstrap again, then I changed my mind. So that's okay. But which one is right for you? Maybe you should limit growth so that it doesn't ever get to any kind of scale. That's a possible thing to do. Close signups.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways, but like you really have to end up deciding this is what I want. This is more important than this other thing. So I will keep this and give up that. But having to do that, having to make those really tough decisions, it's a beautiful thing. And I don't care how smart you are, you should make these decisions, and then you'll have this more consistent company that's solving for the things whatever you decided was what you wanted. That's what it was solving for. And also, again, these other strategic choices about who you're picking as customers and how they're aligned, and that's good. That just feels good. Oh, I got another type of customer who's right for me. Yay! Like that's a good thing. That's what strategy should look like when it's done right.
Would you ever consider building a solopreneur business again? Now that you've been, way on the other side with a huge
Yeah.
business like WP Engine?
Um, I would consider doing anything again because I can, so I've made enough money where I can do whatever. So I can definitely and do work on stuff that I enjoy. So, but one of the nice things there is that means I don't have to make money. So would I do something solo? Yes, I probably would explicitly do something solo, but it doesn't have to make money. So it could, but it really doesn't have to. And the fact that it doesn't have to is such a special advantage of whatever it is. It could be philanthropic. It could be writing stuff or whatever. Like it could be whatever, investing in other companies. Um, but since it doesn't have to make money, that gives me lots more choices of what it could be. So I almost feel like I want to do one of those other things that ignores money because I can. That's something that's more unique and would allow me to do something, be something more special, which is probably overall better. Like I don't think you have to do that, but like it's probably better overall if you are. If you subscribe to like the Kevin Kelly idea of being completely unique, or um, the Dave Perel thing of the personal monopoly, being the only person who's you kind of thing. I think in general that spirit's very good. I don't think it has to be dogma, but I think the spirit's good. So that tells me I don't need to make another company that makes money. So it could even be an open source project. It could be a philanthropic activity. It could be, more of the writing and that kind of creation. I want to write more about all the strategy stuff I was just talking about. I haven't written much about that, so I want to. Okay, good. So do it.
Yeah.
So um, uh, probably not a company, but that's why.
Right. Yeah. So sounds like you're not limiting yourself, which is great. Like
Yeah.
the idea that you have to repeat yourself reminds me of that thing. Like Patrick Campbell, he was speaking at MicroConf in Denver a couple months ago, and he was saying after he sold Profitwell to Paddle for like $200 million, he still felt like he needed to prove that he could do it again. And if you have a 9-figure exit and the first emotion you feel is, this is probably a fluke, I need to do it again, right? That was his reaction, says a lot about the pressures that he was operating under. And it's nice to
Well,
hear that you don't feel like that, to be
I
quite
mean,
honest.
this is all very personal, right? So there's no
Mm.
right answer, but it is interesting to see. Um, One obvious reaction to that is, I did it. Now I might do it again, but I can pick what would be fulfilling, and I'll have to figure out what that means for myself. That's my attitude. And as you said, I have written about what fulfilling means to me and how to do that. So, okay. Um, your other attitude could be, maybe it's a fluke. I have to do it again. Now, again, WP Engine is my fourth company. So I guess I did go back and do
Yeah,
it
I guess
again.
that you
So I
did.
guess I'm like that too, but maybe fourth time's the charm. I don't know. Um, but that's also logical because why do you do the second startup? For the same reason you did the first one, because you were just compelled to. There's really, to me, we have so much rationalization. My mom used to do this to me. My dad did that. I grew up like this. I had this kind of thing. It may be, who am I to say what the rationale is? But what I feel, it's often just, you just needed to. Like it's really not necessarily that complicated. Um, and so why did he do the second one? Because the same reason he did the first one, because he's like, I got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it more complicated? And some of these rationalizations, they sound okay. And again, I don't know what's in people's heads. So, but I'm skeptical because it's so easy to justify or to rationalize in any way. So, like a classic example is someone's a neat freak, and they ask why, and they're like, "Well, my mom growing up was an absolute neat freak and made me this, maybe do this, maybe do that, and it just stuck. I do that. That's how I grew up." Then you ask another person who's a neat freak, "Why are you a neat freak?" "Oh my gosh, growing up, my mom was the slob, and the whole house was a mess. And keeping my room neat was like my way of keeping control over my own life, and just having some agency with staying neat. And that's just kind of stuck with me." Now, by the way, this is all a true story. This example is a true story. Turns out these are identical twins, separated at birth, both growing up in an adopted family.
Okay.
So the reason they're a neat freak is they're a neat freak. It's in their genes. That's why. That's the whole thing. They just are. But this explanation of it came from my mom from completely opposite reasons is all bullshit. None of that's why. It's because you're a neat freak. That's the end of the story.
Just justification there, right?
That's a real story, by the way. And so to me, that applies to many people's rationalizations of anything. So they're like, "Why did you start a company?" "Oh, well, it could be." I don't know. I'm no psychologist, and I don't know you, and so I don't know. But maybe you just needed to, and so why did you do it again? Because you still needed to. I mean, maybe that's it.
Honestly, yeah, I think so. And with this one in particular, right? We sold the SaaS business, and then we fell into the void. You probably know which void I'm talking about. Like when you leave something behind, and you feel like it's right. It's kind of still yours, but it's not. And that made me build what is effectively the Bootstrap Founder, which is a media business, which is not SaaS anymore, obviously, but I still needed to do something, and I needed to do something that gives back to the community that allowed me to do the first thing. So I started another business, and now I'm doing the same thing again, right? I'm at a point where I should probably hire and all that. So, because I'm going through the same motions, but this time with some more experience, hopefully enough more to make better choices. But it's the nature nurture thing that bothers a lot. That bothers me a lot. It's like not knowing if the thing that I'm doing is because I meant to, whatever that may mean, or internally, right? Or if it's something that I think I should do, right? This difference between going your path and going the default path. Who determines what that is? That I struggle a lot with that, because it's so easy to still be a founder once you've been a founder. Again, we're talking about easily done the next thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered not being a founder anymore at all?
Yes. I mean, again, I'm not leaving WP Engine right now. It's been 13 years though. So at some point it just makes sense. It's just a long time. Yeah. I'm not going to start another company. First of all, I'm older. I think continuing to do the writing and putting these thoughts out like that's an obvious thing to do, which is not a company. I don't have ads or anything, that's not a company. But it's fun to write code. So open source projects sound interesting. Of course, working with other people. Again, I've been an investor and been on boards and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff sounds interesting. I don't want to be just an investor. I think a full-time angel investing wouldn't be good for me, because I need to produce. I need to create. And I love helping others to create. That is great. But at the end of the day, if I've not produced anything at all, I'm not going to feel good about that. So I imagine that's part of it, but not all of it. But even that, is that a business? I mean, sort of. Investing is sort of, but not in the way you're saying, right? You're not incorporating, and I don't know, not like that. So yeah, I almost for sure won't have another business, but I'll have projects that matter, whatever that means to me.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I do like your writing. I really enjoy it. Your long form writing is it's very thoughtful, and it has nice graphs. And I do like me some graphs. It's nice to have people visualize their thoughts. Like the most recent one you did with the elephant curve. That is really interesting. Even though it's in a space that I don't have much knowledge of, the VC growth space, it's still exciting to understand, just like we said in the beginning, so that the companies that follow that pattern have these particular problems or issues at a certain point. I really like this. Like, it's funny that you think that's not a business, because in a way, like most things are potential businesses until they are turned into a business. It's not, and I don't mean like turn your hobby into your business kind of thing. I just mean this is a thing that just either can or cannot be monetized. You'll see. and the monetization turns it into a business, but the action would be the same that you would take in the business. It's a media business that doesn't make money.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know what I mean?
sure. Like maybe that's what it is. When I think of business, I think of something that has revenue.
Yeah, that would be good. I
You
would
know,
like that
and
in a
like, and that's
business.
not my goal. Like, I
Yeah.
would rather like I'll take the newsletter subscribers, the RSS feed, the Twitter. That's what I want because it helps my ego and makes it feel good when I post it and other people share it. I like that, and then people say it's nice, and then I that makes me feel good. And I have these ideas, but if no one else no one else can have them, that's not so fun. So that feels like it's worth putting it out there. That's the revenue I want, as opposed to dollars. I even say in my in my emails just once a week, I say like I don't make any money off of this in any way, and so the best way to to contribute back is to share it, because again that's what I want is I just want that's it. So is that a business? I just don't say that because it's not for revenue. But yeah, if you want to say like, yeah, but you've got a project and you're trying to optimize for something or other, and you're trying to build something up, and it's over a long period of time, and it's not a hobby like chess. It's a little bit more directed than that. Okay, then I agree. But I guess the real point is not for money.
Yeah.
That's the
I
point.
love that. Thank you for honestly defining what it is for you. And I think that honesty stuff is something that I've heard you talk and seen you talk about a lot too. Right? You've had a talk from, what is it, 2011 or something?
11, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that about honesty in
10.
business. Really enjoyed
Yeah.
that because I've been doing a thing that I have so conveniently placed on this here thing, like building in public, right? So like building in public is something that I've been doing by myself and with others and seen a lot of people do. And I really, really like it. And building in public is effectively being honest about your journey, the ups and the downs and that kind of stuff. And I do wonder what you think about that movement in particular, because you've been around for a while, right?
Yeah.
Like building in public, like structurally exists since I guess 2009 when Pat Flynn started the Smart Passive Income podcast, where it became more of a digital thing. I mean, people have been sharing their journey everywhere before, but now it's a thing, right? It's a defined thing. So what do you think of building in public? Would you recommend that for founders, like to share their journey from the start, even while they're still building? Is that something you would do?
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely another one of these personal things. A bunch of stuff comes with it. And if you value those things, then that's fantastic. But you don't need to do it if you don't want to. So there's a lot of nice things. One nice thing is you are constantly evaluating yourself, because you don't just post revenue. You say things like, I'm trying this marketing thing. Oh, this didn't work. Oh, I had this thought. And, oh, what did you do for that? And um, even to think, what am I going to post and what do I think about that? Because I need to post what I think about it. That's almost for sure a valuable thing. That kind of meta conversation is good. And then having some feedback. Now, of course, you're going to get feedback from all over the place online. So who knows which of it is valid or not? You have to sort through that. It's too bad. But hey, that's better than no feedback and just sitting there going, is this good? Is this bad? I don't know what to do with any of this. So like having some kind of feedback, even though you still have to evaluate it, that's probably valuable. We were just saying, do you have a network, and do you have, where can you go for that? Well, you're building it. You build it over time that way. Is that valuable? Yes, there might be these moments where you're like, I need my network for this, or can you help me with that? I noticed some people sometimes are like, should I do design A or design B? And it's kind of fun and it's kind of neat, and sometimes there's really smart people out there who give really interesting feedback that you were never going to get. So these are all kinds of reasons why it might help your business succeed, because it helps you think more clearly, and you can get some feedback and build a network, like not necessarily a network to buy the thing, but network to talk through problems. Or, hey, I need to incorporate, should I use that Stripe Atlas, or what should I do? Like even just these basics, that's pretty useful. So these are benefits. Drawbacks would be things like it takes a lot of time. If you actually are going to build a network and have a lot of people and say that, it's a lot of time. And you could be spending the time doing anything else, resting, writing another feature, launching a new marketing campaign, anything, anything but yapping on Twitter. And so in a sense, like yapping on Twitter will not directly help your business. We just said how it would indirectly, so that's fine. But like, it takes time, and I don't believe people are like, I just do it for 5 or 10 minutes a day, and I'm building in public. I don't believe you.
Yeah.
You're on here all the damn time, and you're doing all kinds of shit, and like, it's a lot of your life, and also it's fragmented. We all know that context switching and that is bad, very bad. So it's not just I spend 20 hours on Twitter and 60 hours on my business every week. It's that it's like this. And so that context switching makes that much worse than it might sound when you total it up. That's not, totaling it up is not how time management and attention management works. So I think it's quite distracting and probably dramatically reduces your productivity to build in public. So that's a big issue. I think another positive aspect, though, is going back to strategy, since it's my favorite topic of the moment, obviously, but not the academic crappy SWOT type bullshit, but like the stuff we're talking about, the stuff I think that matters. One beautiful thing about building in public is you have to build a product and a strategy in which being a secret is not part of your strategy.
Yeah.
And that's good, because that's usually a really weak kind of a strategy. It can work for like your Coke formula, the KFC formula. Okay, like there's a time and a place. Maybe a truly tremendously amazing algorithm of some kind. Like occasionally, I get it. But like, is that what indie developers are normally doing? Something of that? No, come on, no way, right? And so, so it's forcing you to make a strategy of growth and even of competitive advantage that isn't based around some sort of secret that probably other people can just rip off. Or like, because you're small, like, or one kind of a secret is that you're small. So like when you're starting out, especially when you're selling to businesses, you don't want them to know it's just you. So you say we on the homepage, about us, and you talk about how you're headquartered in wherever the hell your house is, right? And you never let on that you're one person, because you want that business to trust you, believe in you, think that you're stable, and so on. So you don't want to say that you're only one person. That's an example of a secret, though. Not just algorithms, but that's a secret. If you're building in public, then that's not a secret. So that means you can't rely on that ruse and still get customers. To me, that's good.
Yes.
Because you are just one person, and if someone thinks you're a big organization, they may expect things like 24/7 support or more features or integration, and you're not going to do that because that's not who you are. So that kind of a secret, to me, builds a bad strategy in that it's inconsistent with who you are and what you can actually deliver on. So that promise, I'm like a bigger company, you will not fulfill it. Therefore, it's a bad strategy to have that positioning. And I think it's a good strategy to have the positioning that's you can fulfill on that promise. But then some people won't want to buy from me. Yeah, and they shouldn't, because you can't fulfill the things they need. That's a good thing. Instead, you should focus on the people for whom you are a perfect fit. So to me, it helps you, actually kind of forces you into a better strategy, meaning a better, like, actually who you are, therefore promises you can actually fulfill. And then you'll get people who are like, oh, I want to support the little guy. I want to support the one person. Yeah, and then you'll get them. And that's right. That's who you are. And so that's a good reason. So building in public sort of nudges you towards, don't have secrets. Don't try to be something you're not. Try to win on your actual own merits and weaknesses. Win on that. That is a better strategy. Again, you should pick consistent decisions with that to go with it, right? But that's actually going to be better. So build in public, if you use that way, I think that's helpful. So overall, like, of course, building in public is cool. I do worry about the time commitment. I say commitment, the time that you spend, and that you just have to decide what you think about that. Might just be worth it. Might be like, well, that's part of my social time that I could have spent with friends. Instead, I'll spend on Twitter. It could be that's just so fun, you just don't care. It could be that you do regulate yourself a bit. Like maybe you don't go on all the time, or it's real regulated. Like I go on during lunch and I go on like kind of over meal time, I'll do it. Otherwise, I really won't, and that will keep my productivity high. So there might be ways to mitigate, mute the negative things that it is, and keep those good stuff. Overall, though, is it better for the world? I would have to think it is. The more you can see that all people of all kinds, from all kinds of backgrounds, doing all kinds of things, are all trying, and many of them won't succeed, and we love all of them anyway. We're rooting for all of them anyway. And if they don't succeed with one particular product, they'll just do another one.
Yeah, that's right.
And when people can see that, I think that's a beautiful and empowering thing. So that, to me, that in terms of the overall view of the world, hell yeah, it's a great thing to see.
Oh, I love that because the motivating nature or quality of building in public is extremely strong, particularly with failure. Like people fail and they do something else. All right, I guess I can try. Right? If you're afraid of failure, because I come from Germany, a pretty bureaucratic system, and school was just the same. Like, don't try, you might fail. That's kind of what often was the message that I got as a kid, and it's kind of still in me. Although nature and nurture. We talked about this earlier, but I've unlearned this. And I'm just doing things to see if they work or not, because I've also seen other people try and fail and get back up and be successful eventually. So that's something that definitely allows for. And I love that you talked about this, the self-selection of your potential customers, either into your business or out of your business. You're for me, you're not for me. Either of these is great because it just aligns better. So that's I'm glad to hear you talk about building public in that way. It's really nice to hear what I feel mirrored back at me, because that's why I do it, because I want to see people feel empowered to do things that they otherwise wouldn't do. That's really nice.
Yes, and that aspect is undeniably great.
Well, I do also appreciate that you share a lot of your knowledge around building businesses, even if it's not like build in public as you built a business, but you just have a lot of strategy stuff that you do share. And I was recently looking at your Twitter profile, and I looked at your Twitter bio, and I found what I think is probably one of the best Twitter bios that I've ever seen. And if I can just quote that here, because I just really, really love this.
Sure.
So the bio is keyword, buzzword, half-truth, adjective, hey, look at me, founder of 2 unicorns, WP Engine, and smartbear.com. I love this. That's just great. And it does say a lot about how you don't want to be perceived in our community. And what I do wonder is, have you avoided becoming like a hyper-public thinkfluencer in a space that very actively pulls people like you that have been successful into these prominent places and then corrupts them into these quote machines? How has that not happened?
Well, you say I avoided it. I'm trying to get more popular. What do you mean? Like, I'm not avoiding it. I'm just failing.
Oh, that's hilarious. More smart quotes, like just really, really tiny quotes every day. Just throw them out.
Oh my God! I like how you're avoiding success. How'd you do it? What?
Wouldn't call that success. I don't think in our community it's necessarily a successful thing to be considered like a. Yeah. Like a person that is only doing it for cash or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Because like I don't control how other people see things and what they do. One thing is I don't live in Silicon Valley, and so whatever machine that is, I'm not a part of. Never have been. So I don't know if that's part of it or not. It's really hard in retrospect to say like, why did that happen? And you're like, I don't know. Like, I did various things happen. I really don't know what causes what, or what absence of thing caused the absence of another thing. Like, I don't know. I do think, I mean, you said earlier about being honest, and as you know, and as you said, like I've been talking about that for a long time, really live that all the time, just being very open about everything. Maybe that's part of the answer though. Because maybe if you're vulnerable and a human being, then you can sort of stay grounded and stay, I want to say accessible, but relatable maybe. Whereas like it's hard to Zuckerberg is a machine, right? And like anything that would pierce that idea of him being a machine is bad. Like the thing is, he's a machine. You almost don't want to think of him as a human. So maybe being honest like that maintains my my status as a human being.
Your lack of success as a machine, is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I never heard anybody refer to being a human being as a lack of success in a social media platform. That is pretty funny. Yeah, I get it. I think like just being a relatable human being makes you kind of more immune to the allure of being a persona. Right? Like it's this thing between being a person and a persona.
Oh, right.
Personally, I think I've been a person when I started. Then I became a persona for a little bit and tried all of these smart quotes and stuff. And then I just thought, no, this is so much work being not me. I would rather be myself.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I went back to person with the knowledge of what a persona does, so I could avoid it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I guess you had similar experience on those platforms, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just it's sort of like we were saying earlier. It's just that's this is how I have been forever, as you can see. I mean, I've been writing for so long, been in that way public, not like public like a government official, but that kind of public for so long. It's real clear over almost 2 decades of writing. Like, okay, well, this is who I am. Like,
Yeah,
take it or leave it, I guess.
that's right.
Like if you like it, great. If not, well, that's what it is. So I don't know.
Certainly is your personal monopoly right there. I think you've
Yeah.
defined yourself pretty well.
Yeah, right. And one of them, and in fact, the Twitter bio has this or exemplifies this is I've always said, like, if you're first honest about a situation, then it's much easier to deal with it, whether it's negative or positive or whatever the hell it is. But just like being upfront about it, just kind of like if it's in a meeting, it like takes the worry levels down a bit. It's just like, oh, we can just admit something and then we can deal with it. It's okay to just say yes. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, or like, even if you're like, man, I'm terrible at X, or like I don't know, like I'm too hard on other people about X. If you just say that, like, I know I am, I'm kind of working on it and I kind of don't know, it's kind of out of my control, but there it is. I'm not proud of it, but there it is. It just diffuses it so much. Like the next time that happens, they're like, you're doing it again. You're like, God, I know. Okay. Oops. It's just very, very different. Right. So it's right there in the Twitter thing. Bullshit. Look at me. Bang, bang, bang. Then what do? I turn around and say, look what I did.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I want to say a little, because I want someone to follow me. So I want to say something that says you should follow me, right? But I start by being like, hey, look, we all know that Twitter is just like see and be seen, right? I do too. Well, here's mine. And it's like, okay, you've sort of bought my, not forgiveness, but okay, like now I'll listen to your bragging, but I won't quite feel like it's bragging because you just diffuse the situation.
Yeah, it's all expectation management. That's what you've been doing, and I think that you've been doing a great job. So let's do something for your Twitter following. Now that we're coming to a close with this interview, where do you want people to go to follow you on social media?
On Twitter, it's a smart bear, like the animal, and then the blog or the articles, I guess, is asmartbear.com. So there you go. So yeah, like you want me to feel good, then follow me on Twitter and subscribe to the. I post at most once a week. So, and as you said, they're more in depth, they're thoughtful. So it's definitely like low quantity, but and then sometimes I'll post like an old one from decades ago or a decade ago that's poignant or people like or whatever. And so it's low. I won't send you a lot of stuff, but hopefully it'll be good, median good. So yeah, you want me to feel good? Subscribe and then tell other people and then share some stuff and I'll feel so good. It'll be great.
That's right. Like and subscribe, right? Isn't that what you got to say today?
And subscribe.
Thanks so much for that. I think that the stuff you do send is more than median good. Let me just say this. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you being on the show today. That was really, really kind of you to share your knowledge and your insights and your experiences from building businesses like this. Man, Jason, thank you so much for being on the show. That was
man, I love talking to you about this stuff, and anytime, any topics, happy to. It's this is a lot of fun for me too. So see, I don't make money, but like this is fun, actually fun. So I want to do this. So yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'll take you up on that. All right.
Okay.
All right. Have a good one. See ya. Thanks so much. And that's it for today. We talked a lot about what to do while you're building the business, but what about selling the business? Well, this is where our sponsor comes in today. Not only is Acquire.com a prime resource for people who want to eventually sell their business, they're always there for you on the journey, no matter what stage you're in. Case in point, well, imagine this situation. You're a founder who's built a really, really solid SaaS product. You've acquired customers, and all of this is generating consistent monthly revenue. The problem is, you're not growing for whatever reason. Maybe that's lack of focus or lack of skill or just plain lack of interest, and you feel stuck. What should you do? Well, the story that I'd like to hear at this point is that you buckled down and somehow reignited that fire. You got past yourself and the cliches and started working on the business rather than just in the business. You then built this audience and move out of your comfort zone and do sales and marketing like a pro. And in 6 months, you've tripled your revenue. Wouldn't that be cool? Well, reality is not that simple. Situations are different for every founder facing this crossroads, but too many times the story ends up being one of inaction and stagnation until the business becomes less valuable or worse, worthless. If you find yourself here, or your story is likely headed down a similar road, I offer you a third option. Consider selling your business on acquire.com. Capitalizing on the value of your time is the smart move. Acquire.com is free to list, and they've helped hundreds of founders already. So go to try.acquire.com/Arvid to see if this is the right option for you. And now thank you for listening to The Bootstrap Founder. You can find me on Twitter at ArvidKahl, ARVIDKAHL. You find all my books on my Twitter course there too. Hey, if you want to support me in the show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, get the podcast in your podcast player of choice, and please leave a rating and a review by going to ratethispodcast.com/founder. Any of this will truly help the show. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.